Hi, everyone. Welcome to Classics You Slept Through. We're the book podcast where we read and discuss classic books. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who you never can tell about, my sister, Meredith. How are you tonight, Mare?
That sort of girl. That sort of sister.
Most definitely.
Whatever that means. If Winnie the Pooh can be that sort of bear. Right?
He's a silly old bear. Most definitely. Well, tonight we are discussing the first 5 chapters of Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. This is just entered the public domain on January 1st of this year. Certifiable, all-time children's classic. I don't think there's any argument about that from any quarters. And so far, these first 5 chapters, these are really a delight, I thought, to read.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the stories are familiar, which is fun, but just the narrative voice I love. It's really fun.
Yeah. So why don't we just dive right into this, shall we?
Like a honeypot.
Like
Just
a
dive
honeypot.
head first.
Exactly. So this book kicks off with a little bit of an introduction, which is kind of fun. The whole thing is presented as, I assume, A.A. Milne, our author, as also omniscient narrator and describing things to us. But he intros us off, and I two things that I kind of pulled from the intro. He self-referentially cuts the intro short, saying, well, rather than introduce everybody, why don't I just get to the stories and introduce you to everybody? But he basically introduces us to Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. And according to the introduction, Winnie, which is a girl's name in England, I guess everywhere, it seems a very old name. I mean, very, like a nickname, right? Like it's not, you don't name somebody Winnie.
Like for Winifred.
Right, yeah. So he says, well, can a male bear be named Winnie? Well, you know what? This one is, buddy, so get over it. And we find that Winnie the Pooh is named after an actual bear at the London Zoo, who, according to the introduction, Christopher Robin would give the wink and a nod to one of the assistant zookeepers, and the dude would let him into the bear enclosure.
To be born in the 1800s or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
early
guessing
1900s.
I'm guessing this is just a story that we're not actually letting a 5-year-old child into a bear enclosure to run up and hug a bear, are we?
I don't know. I mean, it's 1925 if he's 5 years old. Christopher Robin was born in 1920. So they still had like horse diving back then, didn't they? Like horses that would dive off platforms and into
I think
pools.
so, yeah.
So maybe they let children hug bears.
I don't know. That's, I'm going to put a pin in that one and look that one up later. Did Christopher Robin actually get to hug a bear named Winnie? Well, anyways, we quickly move through the introduction and we roll into chapter 1, where we're introduced to the overarching framing story of this book, which is the narrator telling a series of stories to the actual Christopher Robin. So we see in the opening scene Christopher Robin coming down the stairs carrying his stuffed Winnie the Pooh with him.
Not carrying.
Well, bumping down
dragging,
the stairs. Yes,
bumping
exactly.
down the stairs.
Sorry, it's the only way Pooh comes down the stairs. Bump, bump, bump.
He thinks there might be another way, but he just can't think of it.
Tell.
But he's bumping down.
It works for him anyway.
Yeah, it's fine.
And so we're introduced to Christopher Robin, and he asks for stories. And the narrator kind of cheekily says, well, don't you remember these stories? Well, of course, I remember them, but Winnie here doesn't. So can you tell it for Pooh's sake? Can you tell the story again? So, of course, sure. I'll tell the story. And then we get into the first story, which is Winnie the Pooh and the Bees. So this is kind of a fun one. Very quickly, in a nutshell, Winnie the Pooh wants to get some honey, decides what's the best way to get up there. He tries to climb the tree. The bees attack. He falls. He goes to Christopher Robin. He says, hey, you know what I need? I need a balloon. Do you have one? He says, why do you need a balloon? Well, to get some honey, of course. So he blows this balloon up, floats up into the sky, disguises himself as a cloud. The bees attack again. He decides these are the wrong sort of bees. Christopher Robin, use your gun and shoot me down, please.
Wait.
So
Two
proceeds
things. Christopher Robin had leftover balloons from Rabbit's birthday party. He didn't just blow them up.
Correct. Well, they do say he blows it up. So which, the laws of physics.
Is that so?
Yeah.
How's that?
The carbon dioxide you're exhaling into the balloon is not going to lift Winnie into the air. So, yeah, that one. Unless he had a tank of helium around it. I think it just says blows up. But anyway.
And I really like the way it was phrased, though, about Christopher Robin's gun, because it's a wall break basically, and yes. Christopher Robin is like, is that me? Is that me in the story?
Yes.
And Milne is like, that's you.
Of course it is.
And you had your gun with you just in case, as you always do. Again, it's 1925. Children carried guns.
He is all about. He's a 2A guy, open carry. He's ready. He's always armed.
Maybe it was a BB gun or like a cork gun.
The illustration in the book is a cork gun.
There you go.
Yes, so a little cork on a string that pops off, a little pop gun. So I don't exactly know how much range Christopher Robin's going to have to actually shoot Winnie the Pooh down with this thing. Okay, so that's the basic story, but we open up with a couple of things in this chapter I thought it'd be fun to highlight. A couple of things that I really liked. We first get sort of the iconic, the sort of cheeky humor that is in this thing, right? The play on words. The British love the puns and wordplay. And, it says Winnie the Pooh lived in the forest under the name of Sanders. And as you said, we have wall breaks all through this. Christopher Robin says, well, what's that mean? He says, it means he has the word Sanders in gold letters over his door. And
he lives under it.
He lives under it. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. That's sort of one of those iconic lines. We also get our first example of seeing into the mind of Winnie the Pooh and his logic. So when he decides to go after the honey, he hears a buzzing. He logically concludes that if there's a buzzing noise, something's making that noise. Mm-hmm. And he logically concludes the only reason you would make a buzzing noise is if you're making honey. So therefore, buzzing noise means bees and honey is available.
I like how he also logically concludes that if bears made honey, they certainly would make it at the bottoms of trees.
Yes.
I mean, it makes sense.
Right. We get another great example of his logic when he goes to get the balloon from Christopher Robin, and he asks him, well, would you prefer, I have a green balloon and I have a blue balloon. Which would you prefer?
Very well thought out, this.
Yes. First he says, well, the green balloon, I might look like part of the tree. So that could work. But I'll be floating in the sky, in the space. So maybe the blue balloon would blend in with the sky better. And then I could then disguise myself as a little black cloud floating through the sky. Just absolutely impeccable logic. And then once he's in the air, he asks Christopher Robin, hey, to further this deception, can you get your umbrella and tut-tut about as though it's going to rain, further proving that I am a cloud?
I would like to know if any Brits are out there. Do you actually tut-tut? Do you tut-tut about things?
I would think that's the default setting, isn't it?
Tut-tut? Tutting?
Yes.
Tutting about.
And harumphing. You're either tut-tutting or you're harumphing. I think those are the two sounds of disapproval you can make.
I know that this is not I know Disney has their own version, but it's pretty close to this stuff. But when I was a kid, I can hear Winnie the Pooh. First of all, I can hear all their voices perfectly. Yes. And it was kind of hard in reading it, not to do some sort of mimic. And I didn't want to do that because this was first, right? And Disney, obviously their iconic voices are great, but
right, exactly.
But I could hear the song, and it's not. I don't think it's exactly the same as the poem, because in my head I'm singing, "I'm just a little black rain cloud hovering over some honeybees," or something like that. something like that.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to really love Winnie the Pooh again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but through reading this, because I don't remember being read these. Your copies went from when you were little or at mom's house, and they are like
Right.
old.
I had these, and I don't remember reading them either.
I don't either.
So I mean, there's this book. There was When We Are Six, which I think is just a book of poems. Or Now We Are Six. Now We Are Six. When We Were Six, Now We Are Six.
I don't know.
I think that's just a book of poems. And then I think there's a second Winnie the Pooh storybook, if I'm not mistaken, that I had.
There's a few of them. There's like two or three, and they're actually printed upside down. Because I was looking at them at mom's the other day, and if you open it, the pages are upside down. Then what it would be the correct orientation if you were to open it from the front. And I don't remember them being read to us. I don't remember reading to them.
They were just always on my shelf. Yeah.
They were always there. I wrote in them. I scribbled all through them because I was a jerk. Just like, no, these are Kyle's books.
You wrote through all of my
in
books.
it.
Yeah, you wrote all of my books.
I don't know. Anyway, still write my name on everything. I don't know why. I do.
So continuing on this first chapter, we've got a couple other things that kind of continue throughout the stories that we get. First, we get Pooh's sort of musing, oh, you never can tell about X, Y, or Z. Because he's, oh, hell, you never can tell about bees. Perhaps they'll think I am a cloud. Perhaps they won't. And he mutters this a few times throughout the chapter about various things. And then the other thing that I kind of pulled out that I really liked that continues on, and you don't pick this up in our readings. If you're reading along, you see it, obviously, but is the capitalization of things, making things, what is it, proper nouns as opposed to whatever. And I just kind of pulled out a few things. So, Pooh, when he is upset at the one point, he begins singing a capital C, capital S complaining song, as though this is like a thing.
Should be. Everyone should have their own complaining song full of tut-tuts and rumps.
Yeah. Later on in the next chapter, he gets read a sustaining book, capital S, capital B.
Ooh.
That is for wedged bears in great tightness. As this is a
sustaining book.
Again, capitalizes those. These are proper nouns. And
I have 4 sustaining books behind me.
Oh,
or at least
sustaining your lamp.
Well, they also sustain my soul too. Some of them.
Oh, okay. That just held the lamp up.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I think sustaining books deserve to be capitalized. I like that.
There you go. All right.
He also capitalizes stoutness exercises.
Yes.
You should add that to your clients'
stoutness
list
exercises.
of things to do. Stoutness exercises.
Do they keep you stout or do they remove the stoutness?
I don't know, but you have to do them and sing tra la la, tra la la.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. All right, so that's kind of chapter 1. These are all sort of discrete stories, so that's kind of fun. Like you don't really have to stop or pick up. You can just kind of pick one up and read it and enjoy the individual episodic nature of these stories.
What I'm looking for, and what I don't know where it is the move from. So in this first story, Milne, as Father Milne or Father Voice or narrative voice, is telling Christopher Robin, you said this, you said that, right? Because he's talking to him. But later, I believe, it changes to said Christopher Robin. As if we're now out of the bedtime story, and these are stories for Christopher Robin, about Christopher Robin, but there is no more, and then you did this, and then you said that.
The first chapter is really the one that carries that load a lot. After that, it sort of fades into the background a little bit.
Yeah.
There's fewer
Yeah.
wall breaks. There's fewer, real Christopher Robin saying something. I think there's a
Yeah.
little bit in chapter 2, but then past that, I don't remember too many.
He becomes character Christopher Robin.
Correct. Yeah. Kind of melts
Yeah.
into that. Did you see the movie they just did not too long ago with the Ewan McGregor as grown up Christopher? Didn't I don't know what they called it, the grown up Christopher Robin, where he has to go back and it was cute. It was all right.
Was it?
Yeah, it was
one of those family films.
Yeah, a little family film. It's like it's like Hook. Peter Pan all grown up and he's got to go back and figure out who he was again and recapture the magic of childhood or whatever.
Can't possibly be nearly 1/10 as good as Hook, though.
Probably not. I mean, nobody dies in it, so it's not scarring.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who dies in Hook?
Rufio. Yeah. Spoiler for a 40-year-old movie. Don't get too attached to the kid with the cool hair. Skateboarding. Cool kid.
I used to do that to my husband's face, like pull it really straight and be like, "There you are, Robin. There you are." He didn't think it was funny.
No. I can see
That's a great movie.
It is a pretty good movie. Watch it. All right, so let me go into chapter 2. This is another sort of iconic Disney. If you've seen the Disney Pooh, they do very well. Pooh, just basically, he goes out for a walk, goes to visit Rabbit, goes in for a bite to eat, and as he's leaving, he's fat and he gets stuck in the door and can't get out. And so they have to wait until some of the fat melts off and he thins out and then they pull him out. And that's chapter 2. That's kind of it for like what happens.
The humor in this one, though, that first section where he's like, "Is anybody home?" and Rabbit's like, "No." Oh, bother.
Yeah. And then, but wait, somebody had to say that though. And he's thinking,
"You, Rabbit?" No.
And then Rabbit changes his voice. "No, it's not me. I'm about to go out and see my friend Pooh." And, "Oh, well, but I'm here." And then, "Oh, well, all right, come on in." Yeah, and then when Pooh is actually in there, so, some of the themes we can kind of pull out of this chapter, Pooh obviously likes to eat, and he is constantly, food is on this guy's mind.
Fat shaming.
A little bit. But I really quite enjoyed the exchange here between Pooh and Rabbit, the politeness, where, Pooh comes in, and he doesn't want to ask for anything, but Rabbit kind of opens the door a little bit, and Pooh's like, "Oh, well, if you're going to have something, I'll have something too." And so Rabbit says, "Well, do you want honey or condensed milk with your bread?" And Pooh's like, "Well, how about both and hold the bread?" So, and they have their bite to eat, and Pooh's like, keeps eyeing the cupboard over there, and he's like, "Oh, I really should be going." And Rabbit, out of politeness, says, "Well, if you must." And again, opening the door, Pooh says, "Well, if you're gonna have something more, I could stay."
Stay.
And he's like, "No. Actually, I'm actually out. I was just about to leave." Okay, all right. So they're dancing around little social cues of politeness without saying, "Dude, get out of my house."
You gotta go, man.
You've eaten enough.
Which is, I'm jumping the gun here, but it's in stark contrast to his visit with Owl later on, where he's like looking at the cupboards and he's like, "Well, this is about the time that I usually have a little something," and Owl just is like,
he's talking. You got Owl revved up.
Yeah, he doesn't even acknowledge, and he's like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
Very little something, as the case would be, or whatever.
Exactly.
Wise old Owl is too wise for social.
Exactly. He's above
social
that.
Norms. Social graces? What would you call that?
I think social graces, yeah. That's probably a good term. So Pooh gets stuck, and they have to wait until he thins out. He fears he'll never get out. But, Rabbit is kind of, he isn't fazed by this, and just says, "Hey, Pooh, while you're stuck in my door, do you mind if I use your feet to hang my towels?" So for a week, this poor dude is just hanging out, and Rabbit's just putting the washing up on Pooh's legs. Um, I don't know if that really bodes well for the cleanliness of your clothing with the rear end of a bear that's trying to lose weight. But anyway, so finally they all pull him out, and once Pooh comes out of the door, I love the fact that he just gets up and goes about his business like nothing happened.
Yeah.
He just goes back to singing and doing his thing, bopping through the forest. And he's good.
It's pretty unfortunate that Pooh's business end got stuck inside the house. Because I mean,
oh, maybe that's why
we
Rabbit
did
had to
eat
put the
an awful
towels
lot.
up. Yeah, put the towels. I don't know if Milne was thinking through the logistics of that. That's
It's like, well, he's a stuffed bear, but he is eating.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
He's eating.
Rabbit bit off more than he can chew on that one. Yeah, getting his money's worth out of that towel rack. That gets us into chapter 3
put a bidet under there or something.
Yeah. Chapter 3. Piglet is introduced here.
What? And Piglet is introduced in the very, very, very beginning introduction.
He mentioned, yes, you're right. He has mentioned that not all the stories are about Pooh because you can't take Pooh everywhere, but you can go to school and stick Piglet in your pocket.
Yeah, and Piglet is there, and he's like, about me? He's like, well, they're about Pooh. So that all means they're also kind of about you.
You're in there too, Piglet. It's cool.
Yeah, and everybody's there in the introduction. They're like, what about us? And he's like, okay, fine, let's get to the stories.
Let's just get going.
The characters all have their own voices and opinions.
Right, and we sort of dole out the introductions through this book.
Yeah, yeah.
Chapter 3, chapter 2 was sort of Rabbit's chapter. Chapter 3, we get introduced to Piglet, and we find out. So he's also got a sign. I loved this little bit. He lives under the sign, Trespassers W, which is short for Trespassers Will, which of course is short for Trespassers William, which.
Or trespassers will be shot on sight, will be prosecuted, will be...
Exactly.
Trespassers William.
We get some more logic here because he says, Christopher Robin challenges him and says, you can't, Trespassers William is not two names. He's like, yes, my grandfather had two names. He had Trespassers and William. This is Trespassers after like his grandfather or something, and then William after Trespassers, which makes great sense. And Christopher Robin just happens to absent-mindedly say, well, I've got two names. And Piglet says, well, there you go. That proves it.
There you go.
I'm right. It's Trespassers
In case you
William.
lose one.
Exactly. Right? You've got the second one. So that's sort of Piglet's introduction. And then we get into the story of Chapter 3, where we are tracking, possibly some woozles, maybe some whizzles. We're not quite sure. But Piglet sees Pooh walking around through the forest, intently staring at some tracks, and he asks him, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm hunting. What are you hunting? Oh, I don't know. I haven't caught up with it yet, but I'll find out. And so they start walking, and they see two sets of tracks, and then they see three, and so now but the third one is different. So, maybe it's two woozles and a whizzle, maybe two whizzles and a woozle. Nobody knows. And then they come upon a fourth set of tracks, and Piglet freaks out. Says, I got something to do. I got to get out of here.
Has to be done between noon and noon 05.
Noon 05, exactly.
Next 5 minutes.
Even though in the beginning of the chapter he insisted, well, I've got nothing to do till Friday. So, I'm good.
I just remembered.
I'm just kind of curious, what does Piglet have to do on Friday? Like, what sort of business does this guy have?
Change his scarf.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. There you go. So then eventually, he kind of freaks out at the end, and he's about to leave, but then they see Christopher Robin sitting up in a tree, and Christopher Robin says, you guys, man, I've been sitting here watching you, and you're just walking in a circle. You're following your own tracks. And that's sort of the end of that chapter.
Christopher Robin, now that he's not breaking the fourth wall and he just appears as character, just like to save the day, basically. I love Christopher Robin as character. Whenever he comes in, it's just really sweet. You're the best bear in all the world. After he's like, I've been foolish and deluded. I am a bear of no brain at all. Christopher Robin's like, you're the best bear in all the world.
Great bud. Yeah.
Said Christopher Robin soothingly. And then when he shows up, I wanted to mention this previously in the second chapter, when he just shows up to come save the day or come save Pooh. Where is it? He just says, or the chapter, I guess, just says, where did it go? Oh man, Kyle, why do I lose these things?
I don't know. Lose your train of thought.
I'm just losing the whatever. When he shows up, he says whatever he says. So it says Christopher Robin
so
said
sweetly that Pooh felt better. Right.
That everyone regained hope.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
It's like everyone was trying to help, and all Christopher Robin has to do is talk. It's so sweet. It's
it's another
sweet.
sort of theme through this is, even though Christopher Robin are sort of absent protagonist, I guess, or hidden protagonist as the one receiving the story, even though he's, I guess, 5 in this, right? Isn't that, he's the voice of reason. Like, he sees through all their silliness. And if you imagine this as a bedtime story or a story being told to an actual 5-year-old, you're telling this 5-year-old all these little funny things all these animals are doing, and then, but the kid, you figured it out. You knew what was up. And I can imagine him sort of like smiling and nuzzling in or puffing his chest up. Like, you're right, I figured that out because I'm smart.
Yeah.
So all these stories are just kind of, ego stroking for Christopher Robin.
Well, ego stroking or like hopefully character building. Like, did Christopher Robin grow up to believe in some way that he had these qualities, that he could soothe people who needed help, or he could bring hope, or he approached situations in which I could maybe help, like could make these people feel better.
Well, if you watch the Ewan McGregor movie, he turns into a joyless lump, so he didn't learn the lesson. Anyway.
Boo.
He figures it out, though. The other thing, it's kind of creepy to think about. We're reading this book about Christopher Robin, this cute little precocious 5-year-old. He's actually like 101 and probably dead. He's like a...
Right now,
yeah. So
yeah,
that's kind of a depressing thought. But anyway.
I mean, he was born in 1920.
Right. Or I guess 102. Maybe almost 102.
102.
If he made it. I don't know.
Do you have stories you tell your kids with characters that you reuse or that's ongoing?
This is the modern age. I just put a podcast on for them.
Did mom or dad tell you a story?
Yeah, I haven't done original stories in a couple of years, sadly.
But you did.
I did. We have this one sort of family legend about Susan killing a dragon on the roof and then cooking the meat, and so we talk about that one a lot, about how she killed this dragon. The kids like that one a lot.
And how long did it take you to eat the meat?
I only eat a sensible portion at a time, so
there's probably still some in your freezer then.
Yeah, it's been a few years. I think we've worked through it by now.
Oh. Well, did mom and dad tell you one when you were growing up? I had one. Mom and dad told me Quackers the duck. Dad told me about all the time. And then if dad wasn't available for bedtime stories, mom would tell me stories about an ice princess who misbehaved all the time. And I was like, I see through you, woman.
Where's the story coming from? Yeah.
I know what you're doing.
I know what you're getting this one. You're Kaiser Sosing me here.
I tell Vincent a story about a dinosaur named Chino. And Chino gets into all kinds of things. But one of the key pieces of this story is that his mom is always making mac and cheese. Because his family's involved in the story.
Yeah.
But his mom's always just busy at the stove making mac and cheese. Yes, that's my life. I feel like that could be my life.
That's what you gotta do. All right, we get into chapter 4, and we get 2 more introductions in this one. First, we get introduced to Eeyore, and he, of course, is sad. And so Pooh comes up and, says, what's going on, dude? And he's like, it's kind of what's going on. So Pooh gives him a quick examination. Turns out he's missing his tail. And he says, hey, man, well, I'm going to cheer you up. We're going to find this tail. And he says, if anybody knows how to find a tail, it's going to be Owl, because he's smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we get to meet Owl. Pooh goes up to his house, and he's got a bell pull, and he's got a knocker. And one says, pull the bell if you want a response, and pull the knocker if you don't want a response. So I guess we know which one works.
Please ring if an answer is required, which is underneath the knocker.
Right.
Ring the knocker. And underneath the bell pull, there's a notice which said, please knock if an answer is not required. So it's very confusing, the placement of signs and the directions.
Right.
No wonder Pooh didn't know what to do.
Well, he just does both. He just pulls the knocker, pulls the bell pull and the knocker just to get in. So then he goes in and he asks Owl, what do we do? And Owl says, well, you got to go through the usual procedures, man. And Pooh's like, why? Oh, what's that? And so he begins to explain how you have to, set up a reward and you have to do X, Y, and Z. And he begins to bore Pooh. And Pooh just sort of starts doing the yes-no game. And he's nodding off. He's like, yeah, no, yeah, no. Just getting into a rhythm, falling asleep. And I love the illustration in the book in this chapter of Owl. If you're reading the illustrated version.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just looks absolutely livid. Like, he is just the most pissed off little owl. He's just staring at Pooh like, you idiot. Would you just listen to me, please? But anyway, so Pooh gets into that alternating yes-no rhythm, and it just happens that Owl said, hey, well, did you see my cool signs that Christopher Robin made for me? And Pooh's like, no. And he's like, well, come on, let me show them to you. And he takes him outside to look at these signs. And Pooh realizes the bell pull, which I don't know why he didn't see it the first time around. He's like, wait a minute, that's Eeyore's tail. He's like, hey, Owl, where'd you get this? Oh, I just found it in the forest, and I pulled it, and nothing answered, so I figured it must be for free, so I took it. Looks handsome, doesn't it? And he says, no, it's Eeyore's tail, man. So they returns it, and I loved the illustration at the end because Eeyore is just so joyful. That I have not... Now, granted, I haven't watched Winnie the Pooh in a few years, but, my Disney recollection of of Eeyore is he's just always sad.
Always.
Like, he's never happy,
Yeah.
right? This dude is just constantly depressed. But at the end of this chapter, like, he's happy. Like, so this guy can feel emotions.
He's doing somersaults. He's peeking at it. He's smiling.
Yeah. He's very pleased he got his tail back.
I love in this chapter well, first of all, Eeyore is my favorite. Which Pooh character was your favorite?
Growing up, it was Owl.
Was it Owl?
It
really?
Was. He's the smart one.
I was going to go with Owl or Rabbit. I was going to say were your favorite.
Smart one.
Well, he can't even spell his own name. He's not that smart.
No, he's not that smart. He can't spell his own name. W-O-L. He's got it.
Whoa. Whoa. I love Eeyore because he's not just gloomy. He's contemplative. He's got existential dread. Sometimes he thought sadly to himself, why? just a general why.
Just a general why.
Or wherefore, in so much as which. Like, I feel like there's he's trying to think deep thoughts. He's really trying, and it's getting him down because he's too deep of a thinker, except they're not that deep.
Right.
They're not that deep at all. Because he can't go. He's like, my husband loves to compare himself to Lake Okeechobee, which is extremely vast, but not very deep. So that's how Ben thinks of his own intelligence.
Okay.
A vast knowledge that doesn't go very deep.
Yeah. Know a little about a lot of things.
Yeah. And don't probe too deep about the thing that I seem to know about. But that's what Eeyore seems to be doing, something like that. Just like, I get it. A general why.
Yeah.
Just why.
It's you're clicking on the references on the Wikipedia page, not just reading the page itself.
It Is that so?
You're going deep. You're going back to the source material. You're going deep. You're supposed to read in the overview.
But I feel like Eeyore is, though. He's just doing the overview.
Well, he's trying to go deep. He wants to go deep.
He's trying. He just doesn't know how.
He doesn't know how. You kind of mentioned earlier, but, contrasting the scene in Owl's house where Pooh is like, can't I have a little... I usually have something about now, Owl. And Owl's just doesn't care, doesn't pick up the hint. No social cue, just keeps on talking and boring his... And I also love the fact that Pooh is obviously not listening. He's obviously bored. And Owl just keeps on trucking. Like, he's got an audience. He's got a captive audience.
He wants to listen to himself talk.
Yeah, he's going to tell him all about it.
The sneeze joke, I didn't get at first.
The issue?
When I... And then when I got it, I had to consciously not laugh. I thought it was great.
It feels like a very British way to sneeze, doesn't it?
Issue.
Yes, it's very like proper and quiet and polite. Yeah. Whereas America, we say achoo, right? Which is like this big, noticeable like, hey, I'm sneezing, look out.
I try not to sneeze really loud, but it hurts to hold back.
I try
Sometimes
not to sneeze because it hurts my back. So if I have to sneeze, I have to like pick one leg up and brace myself against something, and heaven forbid I sneeze while I'm laying down on my back, because that kills me.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's bad.
I have to like engage my core to sneeze. Me too. I'm like, here it comes. Breathe out. I'm ready.
Oh, I love getting old. It's fantastic.
I'm old.
Yeah.
You can't just sneeze when you want to sneeze.
So that brings us to our last chapter that we read for this section. Chapter 5. This is where Pooh and Piglet, they set out to catch a heffalump. So they're sitting around. Christopher Robin kind of casually mentions he saw a heffalump. And Piglet and Pooh decide, hey, I think it'd be fun to catch one, wouldn't you? And we go through another logical dissertation where, well, how would I catch you, Pooh? Well, I'd probably put something in a trap. I'd build a clever trap, and then I'd bait it. And so they come up with digging a deep hole, and then they have to put something in it. And so Pooh comes up with, he's got some honey. He's like, oh, but I don't want to give it all my honey. Maybe just a little bit of honey. And he eats half the jar, but eventually puts the jar into the hole. But, his stomach gets the better of him. He wants to eat the rest of the honey, but he has to get all the way down into the bottom of the jar. Gets the jar stuck on his head. Can't get it off. And the noise and the excitement of him being trapped in this hole with a jar of honey on his head. Piglet thinks, I've done it. I've caught a heffalump. Gets Christopher Robin. They find out, well, it's just Pooh. And then eventually he smashes the honey jar on a tree and gets himself out of there.
What a couple things I love about this is Pooh has to make sure that it's all honey, because
yes,
it might not be all honey. Well, first, is it honey? It says honey, but is it? Oh, it is. But is it honey the whole way down? Because sometimes cheese looks like honey. I mean, God forbid it was actually cheese, like halfway down.
Because he doesn't like cheese.
No,
which is
and a
odd.
heffalump might not either.
Right, because he doesn't.
Right.
Who doesn't like cheese, by the way? I guess lactose intolerant people maybe, but other than that, like,
I'm sure there's some sort of cheese that is for lactose intolerant people.
Oh yeah, there is. There's
some sort of imitation cheese.
Yeah, there is. There's imitation cheeses. There are.
I also like where they should dig the very deep pit. It should be like
a few feet in front of the heffalump, obviously.
Right, so that he could fall into it.
Right.
And the heffalump, in any sort of configuration of what happens, he will not notice that he's falling into a deep pit until he's halfway down. He's like like a Looney Tune who's like doo-doo-doo, and you don't know you're gonna fall until you look down.
You look down, yep, and then the gravity gives out.
And
exactly.
Gravity kicks in. That's right.
Exactly.
I love it. It's so I feel like Milne really captured 3 to 5 year olds and their minds and what they like and the logic. Like, I have these conversations with my 5-year-old constantly, and he would say something like, well, let's dig a deep pit right in front of where they would fall in. But they won't know that they fall in until, and it's like, none of it makes sense. And yet all of it makes so much sense.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
At the time. And it's just, he really, really captures it. Like, I just think perfectly. And also I love the back and forth in the beginning of like, go for it. Talk to your kid as if it all makes sense, and engage in it and enjoy the, put yourself in the imaginative world with them. It's kind of like how you talk to a dementia patient. Let them be let them be in that world where everyone they knew when they were 15 is still alive. Don't try to tell them, nope, everyone you've ever known is dead. Remember? Like, no, they don't.
Because they don't, and they won't.
And then you just get to, I don't know, be there with them. Yeah. It's probably much more simple to say than it is to do, but still.
I think with a kid, it's a little easier because they kind of go along and they play off of whatever you say, and it continues from there. So
they catch on though. Like, if they do it, it's one thing. But if you start, for me anyway, if I start the ridiculousness, thinking I'm mimicking or, giving some sort of similar conversation that my son would start, he'll look at me and be like, "Are you just kidding?"
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's just that he believes everything I say. He'll ask me things like, he asked me, "Mom, is Peru real?" I was like, "It is. Peru is
I've been there.
Real place.
It's definitely real." Yeah, but if they catch on that you're being silly and they want to play along, like, then it becomes kind of fun because then it sort of escalates.
Yeah. But he's worried. I feel like he's worried. Like, is this real, or is this a game? Because I think I would like to know.
Yeah.
He's like, "Is Santa real?" I'm like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm not ready to tell him the truth on that one yet. But I don't tell him. I don't tell him yes. I just ask, "What do you think?" And he lets it go. He just lets it go.
I don't want to.
Yeah, he doesn't answer it.
They want to believe. That's the thing at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And if he didn't, then fine, he doesn't. But the fact that he doesn't answer it one way or the other, and he like starts talking about something else, I find interesting in and of itself.
Right.
But
right. That's because he wants
Peru
to keep
real? Yeah. Caterpillars real? Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
They sound ridiculous. Yeah, they turn into butterflies. What?
You've seen them. Yeah.
They're real. So heffalumps and woozles could totally be real.
They could. I mean, we need to dig a big pit and see if we can catch one.
Right in front of where one would be.
Exactly. All right, so that brings us to the end of the chapters for this section. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm just really enjoying it as an adult. Just the goodness.
It's just sweet. It's
Winnie
just
the
very
Pooh.
nice.
It is. And Christopher Robin, I feel like, is almost like if Mr. Rogers were a child. He's like, "I love you just the way you are, Pooh.
You're just great." Yeah. No, I can see
wonderful.
That, definitely.
It's really sweet.
All right, so for next time, we're going to finish this. This is a short book, so we will definitely wrap this one up next week. We'll read out the final chapters, and you'll get those into your feed here in, should be tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the day the pod drops. And then we will wrap this one up, talk about it, and wrap it up the following week, and then move on to another book already. So I think this is good. We needed a quick win after the extended 3 Men in a Boat. It took forever. I kind of feel like we're still reading it.
We got to keep our average right, like 6 months, 2 weeks.
Exactly. It all balances out
together.
So anyway, if you enjoy these classic books that we bring to you, you can help us out. Why don't you go over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review, say something nice about our podcast. That'll help other folks find the show. You can also jump over to Spotify. They have star reviews now. You don't even have to write anything. Just click on it and give us a nice star rating on there. That'll help people on Spotify find the show. You can also tell somebody. If you like this show, tell somebody about this great podcast that has audiobooks and audiobook discussions or discussions about classic audiobooks that they can just listen to for free. Free audiobooks. You don't even need a library card, although I do recommend joining your local library. You can also follow us on social media. We are at CYST Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Meta Zuck book, whatever, that insurrectionist breeding ground of Facebook. Yes, we're there too. You can also find us there. And you can also send us email. Email is cystpod@gmail.com. We are also on Reddit, where we do live readings and various other fun things. Username same. Again, cystpod. Big surprise there. All right. So until next time, it's almost Halloween. So make sure you fill out your surveys to find out who your secret admirer crush is.
Halloween?
Did I say Halloween?
Yeah.
No, that's what?
So
right.
creepy.
I think you get a different. You get your dead crush. Your
Zombie bride.
What demons are haunting you at Halloween? Yeah, it's almost Valentine's Day. So Phil, did you have to do those? Did you ever do those? God, what pressure-ish things we did. I mean, I guess kids have it bad nowadays too with social media and whatnot. But they
never did them, and I never got any.
They don't do them in school anymore, I'm sure, right?
No, I doubt. I'm sure they do. I'm sure
they still do.
Don't
kids just download Tinder or something? I mean, they don't need to actually fill out one of those survey things.
No.
I remember filling them out, but you had to like pay to get the results, and I was like, nah, whatever, I'm not paying.
Pay?
It was like $1 to get your results or whatever, and they'd like
to see that nobody likes you.
Well, yeah, or how many matches you had. I was like, I'm not doing that.
What?
I know, it's crazy.
I never did that.
Dumb stuff we do in school. All right, so we'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody.
Happy Halloween.